Friday morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will, and it continues live on 104.5 The Zone and Zone TV. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, and Will Bowling, joined by our very good friend Brent Hubbs of VolQuest and On 3 this morning. Brent, it's been a minute, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Glad to have you back in the chair, man.
I decided to show up to work today.
That's good. I mean, you had the summer of bowling. You were traveling around everywhere. I mean,
And his birthday this weekend.
Nice. What? Oh, well, we hope he's there Monday. We're not sure what's going to happen on that deal.
Well, we got a fefeeling he may miss may miss a Monday in the fall with this big concert coming to Neyland, but it's neither here or there.
It's true.
Oh, okay. I hope he was one of the fortunate ones that found his way to some tickets in the queue, and he wasn't number 174,000 waiting in line for a ticket.
I may or may not have come across a couple. We will see what happens this September. No doubt about it. Looking forward to it. Brent, there is
I'm going to go to Norman. I mean, I don't know why, but apparently there's a football game to play out there, so I think I'm going to go cover it.
There is a Josh Heupel reunion tour that is going on that weekend in Norman, Oklahoma.
A reluctant reunion
That's right.
tour, by the way.
That is right.
Bring me some back, Hubs. That's all I ask, okay?
I can't bring back any of the steaks I'm going to have in Oklahoma City.
Okay, well, just bring a cow from your farm.
Goodness sakes.
I got to get some.
So Brent, when David Sanders goes from Nebraska to Knoxville, do his parents still make him drive? You know, the way they have coming from Charlotte? How this guy's got some frequent flyer miles.
Yeah, I tell you what, I mean, they have been very, very thorough in all that their approach to this whole recruiting process, and they're not taking visits for the joy of taking visits. I mean, this is answer any final question that you have about both schools. This is kind of where you are. I mean, it sounds like Ohio State's out. You know, they're not getting a visit here. I don't think he's going to Nebraska just to say, hey, I want to go back to Lincoln, Nebraska. I think he's going to try to get some questions answered that he still has, and then he's coming to Tennessee for any final questions and, a final visit with Josh Heupel and Glenn Ellerby. And, these visits here are not about getting in the group of recruits that are going on the tour and, walking around or playing a video game. I mean, this is very specific to whatever final questions he has before he makes his decision. And I think he's getting closer to a decision. I just think he wants to verify a couple things, check out a couple things at both places before he arrives at that final decision, which is obviously coming up here in a couple of weeks.
VolQuest Brent Hubbs joining us this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Oregon commit Deshawn Brai gets in town last night. He is there. George McIntyre in Knoxville as well. It is a who's who for Josh Heupel this weekend. What is Tennessee's conversation like with Brai? We talked about it with Austin earlier this week, but what has changed in these last few weeks since he originally committed to Oregon?
Well, two things. One, and this is a lesson for all coaches out there, when you lose a kid and you're surprised by that loss, which was the case with Brai. I mean, it was Tennessee until it wasn't in the last final hours, and it became Oregon. Instead of a coach losing his mind of, you've wasted my time, how dare you do, you know what I mean? You just, hey, wish you the best of luck if it doesn't work out. You know how to get in contact with me if you ever want to have a conversation about anything. You're setting that up for the transfer portal life. You cannot be that coach that, what is it Lane Kiffin did with Alshon Jeffrey? If you don't come to Tennessee, you're going to be pumping gas, or whatever. I mean, you can't play those games anymore. You've got to be the adult in the conversation and say, hey, I hate that. If it doesn't work out, give me a call or whatever the case may be. In the case of Deshawn Brai, getting the call occurred a lot sooner than anybody thought. And I think what happened with Deshawn Brai is the more he thought about it, the Oregon NIL stuff was good and the fancy uniforms and all that other stuff. But I think the more he thought about it, I don't think he felt as comfortable as the visit wore off from Oregon. I think he felt less and less comfortable about living in Eugene. I'm not knocking Eugene. I just don't think he was as comfortable in Eugene as he was in Knoxville, Tennessee. So I think that was part of it. I think the offense, I think George McIntyre, I think Josh Heupel. I think the fact that his current girlfriend signed to play soccer at Tennessee. I think all those factors in the end were like, wait a minute, money, maybe more money out here in Oregon, or a lot of other things on my list that make me happy in Knoxville, Tennessee. I think Knoxville, Tennessee feels better, and I think that's where it stands right now.
Kayla has acknowledged that to us, or has told us that about the Pacific Northwest. Like, there's not much in Eugene. I always thought Eugene was awesome because Oregon played it up so much with the jerseys and Nike, etc.
Nah.
Fascinating.
It's different. And I don't mean it like, oh, those people. I'm just saying, if you live in Kansas and you went to Eugene, it's a very different type place.
Okay.
It's not the greatest campus.
I think Knoxville's got a little more. I just think he feels more comfortable in Knoxville than he does. I mean, in Eugene, if you go to Eugene, you're going to play football. If you're a football player, that's your experience in Eugene. Whereas I think in Knoxville, he's more comfortable with the lakes and the surroundings things and all that. And I just think he came away going, you know what? If I'm going to have to live somewhere year round, which is what you have to do as a football player, I think I like Knoxville better than I like Eugene.
Speaking of wants and needs, man, David Sanders is headed to, Will said a second ago, Nebraska, right? Dylan Raiola is all in. They're going to have a meetup at 5:30 on campus. This is nuts. But as far as wants and needs, what does, because I've heard nothing but high praise from David Sanders' family. What do you think their wants and needs are as it pertains to his recruiting and NIL, et cetera?
Well, I mean, he's got like a lot of these guys does. He has representation. He's got an agent. So they don't, I think the agent is handling most of that from the what the NIL picture looks like. Nebraska's all in, NIL-wise. I think Tennessee's all in NIL-wise with this deal. I think for David, there's been questions about, Ohio State tried to sell David for the longest time, and are still trying to sell him on, hey, come here and get developed to be an NFL offensive lineman. Tennessee's system, that gimmicky offense they're running down there, does it really get you ready to be an NFL offensive lineman? We're going to get you ready with the style of play that we have. Tennessee's counter to that is, well, Darnell Wright's getting ready to start his second year with the Chicago Bears after starting every game as a rookie, and he was a top 10 pick. So it's not like we don't develop linemen, and it's not like you can't leave our offense and go to the NFL and be successful, because you can. So from a football standpoint, I think that's something that David has had to work through, in terms of looking at the scheme and, how physical are you at Tennessee? Can I be developed the way I want to be? All of those types of things. Matt Rule, he obviously knows to some degree because – Matt was in Charlotte. Obviously, that's where David's at. Matt's son was in the Charlotte high school system out there. I don't know that they were classmates or anything, but I think they know each other. And that was the initial traction to Nebraska. And I think Matt Rule's done a good job using that to get in the door. And then Dylan Raiola is trying to sell it, and George McIntyre is trying to sell it. And that's where it's at. At some point in time, too, you wonder if distance from home is going to factor into this thing. Mom and Dad and him are extremely close. He's got a younger sibling. I don't think they're just going to pack up and go wherever he goes. So do they like the fact that they can get in the car and drive over and see him in 4 hours from Charlotte versus getting on a plane and go to Lincoln, Nebraska? I don't know the answer to that. We'll see. That's why a lot of people feel like Tennessee, if Ohio State's down the list and it's Tennessee or Nebraska, a lot of people feel like Tennessee's in the catbird seat because the distance factor might end up being a bigger factor than we know. So we'll see. They've just been very methodical about the process. They haven't gotten very specific about all of their needs to the media and what they're looking for. But this is very much a business-type decision for them. With some personal factor like distance and stuff like that factoring in there as well. So they've just been very, very thorough. One of the more thorough recruitments I've seen a player go through in a long time, just in how they have not missed any steps or not turned over every stone. And that's what this last round of visits is, to turn over every stone to make sure they haven't missed anything.
Brent Hubbs with us this morning. Brent, we think there's a list of guys that's going to commit soon, and another one of those is Faison Brandon. I have to ask you this, though, too. For a guy that couldn't recruit or said he couldn't recruit well, right, as far as Coach Heupel goes, what does it do for Tennessee recruiting moving forward, considering you got a top 5 quarterback in George McIntyre, right, in this year's class, and next year's class you got the number 1 guy coming in even earlier than George committed? What can it do for the Vols moving forward on that front? Because we've learned, I think, since LeBron and his friends have been on the banana boat in Mexico, like, you recruit friends to come play with you.
Well, I think what it says is it goes back to Hendon Hooker. It goes back to the fact that there's success stories. This system is working at the highest level of football. Listen, there's a ton of credibility, whether anybody wants to acknowledge it or not, that this Art Briles system went and beat Nick Saban. Okay? That was a, quote, landmark win because they beat Nick Saban with a style that a lot of people said you can't win with, right? You're not physical enough. You're not this. You're not that. And they went and won with it and were successful. Quarterbacks putting up big numbers. Josh Heupel's in a quarterback-friendly system. The NFL is not playing Josh Heupel's system because the hash marks are never going to be where they're at in college and the NFL. But what's the NFL game become? Devalue the running back, value wide receivers, quarterback. We're going no huddle. We're running the quarterback some. We're spreading people out. We're doing some of those things. So suddenly now that translates a little better than it did 5 years ago. And I think that's played to Josh Heupel's hand a little bit. They turn their quarterbacks loose. They give them a lot of freedom at Tennessee. You had Hooker's success. Hey, if the number 1 quarterback in the country and Nico comes and plays at Tennessee, what does that mean for me? George, I'm staying home because the culture at Tennessee, my friends are at Tennessee, the offense is perfect for me. I get to turn it loose and play, okay? And then here's Brandon Faison, Brandon Faison. I'll get it right in a minute. Anyway, Faison Brandon, who comes over and he camps at Tennessee as a young player, gets an offer. He knows about Hendon Hooker. He's from North Carolina. There's a comfort level he has with Josh Heupel in their first meetings, and Joey Halsey's done a good job with them. So it's style of play, it's the comfort level, it's the freedom in the offense. They're in a pretty good window of guys in terms of, hey, here's how this thing is set up for you to get on the field. Kind of when your window, would be for you to be the guy, that type of thing. All that's set up, and it's a pretty good plan that Tennessee's put together. It says a lot about where Tennessee's at, that the top-flight quarterbacks are all interested. Every year, a top-flight quarterback is interested in your system and interested in playing for you because of what you've been able to do at the quarterback position.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest joining us this morning on RK Dub. Give us a little insight on the discussion that is continuing to happen on the 105 scholarships. You say that this is something that is actually going to happen. It's not just a discussion. And how does it affect things like the walk-on program specifically?
Well, it eliminates the walk-on program is what it does. It completely wipes it out. And we'll put it to bed and put it away. And what you're going to do, Tennessee typically carries 130 players on their roster with their walk-on program. This would eliminate you that your max is 105. They can all be on scholarship. So you're cutting 25 players that would be a part of your program as practice guys. Sometimes a walk-on can emerge and play. A lot of times they use their kickers through the walk-on program, deep snappers. And you've certainly seen some walk-on guys go and play on special teams, and some even make, the regular defense or the offense. That's going to eliminate the walk-on program. It's going to eliminate your numbers. It's going to cut 25 down, okay? If most schools carry 125, 130, how many players around the country are not going to be now on Power 5 rosters as walk-ons? Well, they're going to go play somewhere, right? So they're going to trickle down probably to the next level to where they would get a scholarship, where they had scholarship offers that they turned down because they wanted to bet on themselves and try to play at the Power 5 level. Now you're going to trickle that down. So it's going to have an effect on high school recruiting. It's going to have an effect on who all get some opportunities out there and don't get opportunities out there. And then I think it's going to be, pretty interesting because you're going to take a chance on some guys probably in that 105 range. Probably 90 to 105 is going to be more, hey, let's take a shot on this guy and see what happens. And if it doesn't happen, you're probably going to roster manage it, which means you might tell them, hey, we're not renewing that scholarship. You need to find somewhere else to play. I mean, it just makes it another level of a business, which is obviously what it is anyway, but it just, makes it another level of business for all schools out there at the Power 5 level. Now, I think when you get down to some Group of 5 schools and you look at some of these other schools, I don't know if they've got the budget to do 105.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to do there. I mean, from a Power 5 standpoint, it's probably a push financially. I think a scholarship a year at Tennessee's $55,000 to $57,000 is the value of it that goes to the university side. If you eliminate 25 players and you're not feeding them 3 meals a day, gear, health care, nutrition, some of those things, it probably ends up being somewhat of a push at that level, but it's certainly not a push at the level of, Group of 5 schools. So what do? I mean, do they run 90 and just don't practice with the same number of players? I don't know what they're going to do there. I think it's a harder thing for them than it is the Power 5 schools. It's more of just going to be an adjustment for the Power 5 schools.
Really interesting, Brent. Thanks for the breakdown of that. And you talked about a business and how everything in college football is, moving a little bit more in that direction. And then you think about the entertainment district that Knoxville has put out the renderings, which are beautiful, by the way. And I know Will has a take on this, but it's something that where's the happy medium where they've been able to find that maybe of giving this entertainment, but also keeping it college football atmosphere?
Well, it's moving. It's not just trickling as a business. It's moving like a Cadillac Eldorado going from Texarkana to Texas about 160 miles an hour.
Yeah, floating, hooks, floating.
It's just nonstop. I think that the challenge that you have in college sports is the fan experience. What do you do to make it a fan experience that keeps bringing people back? Everybody's interest is changing. It used to be that, and it still is for a lot of people, that you pack up and you get your headphones on to put them on in the stadium, and it is all about football, 100% about that game at that moment. Well, now it's more the social scene. It's more, hey, we got to have Wi-Fi in the stadium. I mean, 10 years ago, people weren't checking Twitter all the time during the game. They weren't trying to post something on Facebook. They were watching the football game. So the interest is a little bit different from a fan experience standpoint. And you're always trying to look at creating things. And this is a vision that Danny White has had. Now, we'll see where it goes. I mean, obviously it's streaming down the pike with, the renderings being released and moving forward with retaining a company to do this. I don't know that it's going to look exactly like that. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff that still has to happen before anybody rolls a backhoe and a wrecking ball in there to start doing something. But Danny White's always talking about trying to thread the needle between tradition and innovation. I think that some people view this as you're eliminating tradition. You're making it too much about innovation. Some other people look at it and go, hey, that's a really cool thing. You're probably not going to make everybody happy with it. But this is kind of the next thing that he's looking at from a fan experience standpoint. And it's worked in Atlanta. It's worked in some other places around the country. And I think we're moving in more and more with college sports into sort of that professional sports viewpoint. And the entertainment district is one of those types of things.
Brent, all I'm saying is if they bring a copper seller back into that new district, a lot of people that want their parking spots in G10 will be happy again.
Well, I mean, listen, the issue with Tennessee's campus with the entertainment district is parking in general.
Yes.
It's not just parking for game day, which is going to be an issue, but it's parking in general. And people are like, wait a minute, the first release from Danny White about this said basically they're going to build that over top of G10. Well, G10 is 35 years old.
Right.
Okay. You probably can't put, 100 million tons of concrete and steel and brick on top of it and go, hey, it's good structurally. We're in good shape. It was never built with the intention of putting something massive on top of it. So I think these developers are like, look, to do this thing the right way, we got to wipe that thing out and build it back. Okay. Well, that's a challenge, because when do you do that? When do you do that for student parking? When do you do that with basketball parking? When do you do that with concert parking? Those are discussions that are taking place right now. That's like, okay, if we do this, how do we make that element work? Because we have to make that element work. I think the other element that's going to have to come about for students, regular students, is we're going to get to a point in Tennessee's campus where there's an edict that says, if you're a freshman moving into a dorm at Tennessee, your parents are dropping you off.
Yes.
You are not leaving a car here. We don't have room for your car. That happens at Ohio State. I think it's happening at Georgia. It happens at a lot of other schools in north of here that say you can't bring a car your freshman year if you live on campus. And I think we're going to have to get to that point at Tennessee with the growth of enrollment, the building of new dorms. It's taking parking lots away. Who knows what happens with G10 here? I mean, those types of things. That's why the university is involved in the entertainment Senate district, not just the athletic department.
Great stuff as always with VolQuest's Brent Hubbs here Fridays on Ramon, Kayla, and Will, a month away from football time in Tennessee. Brent, thank you.
Hey, as Coach Mack says, Ramon, we're dropping the blade Wednesday and we're getting after it.
Well, I mean, the next time we talk to you will be within a month, so
No, Hubs, keep it tight on him, man.
We're not talking about a month from now. I mean, I know for you, Will, practice doesn't count.
That's right.
Practice counts for the rest of us. We're going to go to practice on Wednesday.
All right.
Talking about practice.
Next week, football is back for Tennessee football.
Yes,
We talked to
sir.
Brent Hubbs. Brent joining us this morning. Brent, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a
Thanks,
great day.
Hubs.
Yes, sir. For once, I feel like maybe I did graduate at the right time. Talking about all the parking being taken
My
away
goodness.
in Knoxville. 615-737-1045. Headlines around the league, and Shane Steichen making a bold claim about Anthony Richardson. We got that for you next.